Welcome back to the Azura Media Club, home of the Bad Girl Coven. I'm your Coven leader, Emily. Here we're talking about Code Lyoko today. Not the video game, which I know misleading, but that's the only Code Lyoko related media I actually own is this video game of it, which apparently looks a lot like Lyoko, the virtual world of the show. Um, and if you don't know what Code Lyoko is, I'm old and I know that. And I used to watch this show, relentlessly when it came out. I loved this show. This was, my favorite middle school, late elementary school show. I would come home and watch this and Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, every afternoon, and I have such fond memories of doing that. And I know the show has its problems, and especially I have even technically talked about it on this channel before, the problems that me and my friends have with this show, and more so my friends, but I do agree with some of their criticisms. And that was a long time ago, so actually not on this channel. Sorry, what am I saying? On the other channel I talked about it briefly, but on this channel I haven't discussed it yet. So anyway, Code Lyoko. It's a great show. It's about this group of friends who basically have to fight this thing called Xana inside this computer world, which is like an AI, artificial intelligence that can basically manifest things in reality, and then that correlates to a tower being on this virtual world called Lyoko, and there's this girl who's stuck in the virtual world of Lyoko called Aelita, and then Jeremy and Ulrich and Odd and Yumi have to virtualize themselves and save the day. Well, it's such a fun premise for a kids show back then. It was definitely one of the classics, but I mean, it is one of those shows where it may not hold up as well as I want it to. You know what I mean? And it is certainly a big batch of nostalgia, but also I feel like there's some genuinely cool shit going on at the show. I think the main problem with the show, and watching it on 1.5 speed like I did, actually does help alleviate this a bit, but the Lyoko sections and the reused animation, much like the early seasons of Miraculous Ladybug, where they would just do the animation sequence of them transforming again and again and again, the scanning into Lyoko part, and, transfer Yumi, transfer Aelita, scanning scanning Ulrich, scanning, all of that stuff, and then just when you get to Lyoko, it's usually a lot of the same kind of stuff. There's only 5 or 6 enemies, and in the early season there's only 4. There's the block one, there's the crab one, there's the mega tank, the ball one, and then there's the wasp one, and then the little dudes. That's 5. So, and I guess Guardian, but that's not really an enemy. It just kind of is a ball that captures one of the people, and then you have to basically create a clone of them to free that person or whatever. They keep referring to it as an enemy, so I guess I'll do the same. But realistically, there's 5 enemies, and then something correlates that happens in the real world, and that's the stuff that actually usually works really well, is the real world stuff. Sometimes the Lyoko stuff is interesting, but it gets very repetitive, especially after 95 episodes, which is how long the show ran. The first season is 26 episodes, but it really grades on you the longer it goes on. You're like, yes, I've seen this same Lyoko thing 70 times. There should have been, they did a boss, basically, at the end of the show, and there should have been more shit like that. That would have made it more interesting. As it is, they just basically kind of did the same thing again and again and again. And there's only 4 regions, especially in the first season there. There's a 5th region later on, but, that doesn't show up until later. And then most of that is, the show. That's where the show mostly takes place later on, and then it's just, now that's annoying, because it's I don't want to see that either. It's just there should have been more variety in the Lyoko section. They should have been cut down a little bit more. And it does feel tense and stuff, because you, like, you know that there's only 3 of them, and if they all die, then, like, you can't... I guess you can't go back in right after or something, like, to just, like, re-virtualize yourself. Like, that's dangerous or something. That never really gets explained as far as I know, but maybe later. Also, like, what Xana is and, like, where he came from and stuff doesn't, like, get explained until later. I don't even remember if it does get explained later specifically, but I know there's a lot of really interesting stuff coming up in the future. I saw some video by some guy who's, like, talking about, like, Code Lyoko and like, the series and stuff, and again, and he was kind of going in little sections, like, he did, like, the first season in, like, 2 sections or whatever. And if I was more dedicated to doing this YouTube stuff, more, I would definitely be more interested in doing, like episode by episode shorts, kind of like I was doing with Scott Pilgrim. We'll see if I even, like, freaking finish that, because, like, it's just such a big pain in the ass to do stuff like that, because it takes up so much, of my time and effort and stuff, and I'm trying to do other things rather than just YouTube, because I got really burned out on just doing that, for a while there, but I did want to talk about this because this show does mean a lot to me, despite not maybe being a perfect show. And mostly, like I said, it's just the Lyoko parts. I feel like the real life parts usually work, you know, because you're actually, like, kind of invested in the characters and their stories. That's kind of what's going on in the real life parts. Sometimes they deal with that stuff in Lyoko, but for the most part, the Lyoko parts are just, like, your kind of cool action segment. And they switched to, like, from a 2D style in the real world to, like, a 3D style, which was innovative and unique for its time, and I don't think it looks that bad, and I think both worlds look pretty good, but, you know, Lyoko looks bland after a while, after you've kind of seen all of its tricks, which you've pretty much seen by the end of the first season, so, but, you know, like, the main character interactions are great, and them dealing with, like, Sissy, and, like, who's, like, the bully character, and she's, like, got a crush on Ulrich, and Ulrich likes Yumi, basically, and Yumi likes Ulrich, but they won't admit it, because they're too shy about it, or whatever, and they kind of delve into that later in the show, but, and then Jeremy's, like, trying to virtualize Eileen, or, unvirtualize, how would you say that, like, materialize Aelita into the real world, which is a weird thing, because it's like, I wonder, there's spoilers, right, obviously, but, like, I wonder if, like, he could have done that if she, like, didn't have a body prior, because she did have a body prior, because, like, she was, like, a real person at one point. They, like, get into that in later seasons, but, like, if that hadn't been a thing, then, like, what's the deal with that? Like, I don't know. Anyway, so, yeah, it turns out at the end of the season that they do get her, like, materialized, but she has, like, a virus on her from Xana, so that, like, she's linked to the supercomputer, basically, so they have to find a cure for that before they can, like, shut off the supercomputer, basically. So, yeah, so that's fun. But, you know, like, the scenarios and stuff are pretty cool, like I said, in the real world. There's a lot of horror vibes in this show, like, definitely, like, they have a alien that was, like, from, like the movie Alien. It looks almost exactly like it, and they're shooting, like, a movie in the factory where the supercomputer is, and, this alien, like, comes to life because of Xana, and, you know, it's very much like something like the movie Alien, where they're, like, running around the factory trying to, like, avoid the alien and stuff. There's one where, the factory, like, Xana uses the factory to build, like, well, he's used it to build robots multiple times, but, he builds, like, a Terminator robot. That was pretty cool. That's a good one. Some of them that I hate, like, not that it wasn't a good episode, but I hate mice and rats. And I think I did mention that in the Ratatouille episode, but there's an episode all about that, and that is just, oh, it's so hard to watch because I just hate them, and they're everywhere, and they're squealing, and there's even a guy in the episode who, like, fucking hates mice and stuff, so, like, I relate to that guy, but that was a good episode. There's one where, like, bees are attacking, there's one where Xana's trying to, like, destroy the factory, he takes control of, like, a satellite that, like, shoots down laser beams at one point. That was a pretty intense kind of episode. He does all sorts of crazy stuff. The first episode, he takes over a teddy bear and makes it, like, gigantic. And, so that was pretty crazy. But yeah, you stick around not only for the Xana stuff, which is cool, but also just, like, all of the stuff, because, like, the characters are good, and you tend to like the characters. I feel like, you know, they're all pretty good, but in terms of things, obviously, you know, like, Ulrich and Yumi are kind of my favorite characters. If I had to have, like, a favorite character, obviously, it's probably going to be, like, Yumi. But, yeah, I mean, so, but it's great, you know? It's kind of slice of life, you know, monster of the week kind of situation for a show, but for something like that, it's actually pretty good. And I think, if I remember correctly, like I said, they add a lot in the coming seasons, much like your Miraculous Ladybug, where season 1 is a little bit weak, and then you kind of get more in depth and stuff, like, later on. And now that they've got Aelita, I think things are gonna get pretty interesting that away as well. So, yeah. But it's a cool show. It's got a banger of a fucking theme song. Like, the best goddamn theme song. So catchy, so, like, powerful, so nostalgic, you know? Like, of any theme song, like, for sure. I love that theme song. And the show itself just encapsulates that feeling of coming home from school, from elementary school and middle school in the you know, the early 2000s, and just, like, it's that vibe, you know? And I was about the age that they were, like, you know, so it's really relatable then. And, you know, I feel like sometimes a show, like, let's say, like, Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, great show, but the problem is that the whole premise of the show is that you're trying to survive middle school, right? So, like, when I'm older and I'm not trying to survive middle school anymore, it's not as cool of a thing, you know, and a lot of that kind of gets lost. But it was a time capsule of its time. It's still a great show, but it's not, like, it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't hold up, because it does, but Code Lyoko, my point is, I feel like, in a sense, it still does hold up, but, you know, I'm sure it's not really for everyone, and obviously, like I said, the Lyoko sections are a little tedious, and, you know, of course, that's, like, half the show, so that's gonna turn people off, and especially watching it in a marathon style, where you watch a bunch of episodes in a row, like I have. Those are definitely the more tedious bits of that marathon, is just watching the Lyoko bits. But like I said, the real world bits are usually pretty good, because it builds on the characters and stuff, and even sometimes the Lyoko stuff they do. But it's just a lot of the same repetitive shit in Lyoko, and it's just like, it felt less like we're being creative here, and more like, we have this technology, so we're gonna fill our it's kind of filler, you know what I mean? We're gonna fill our episode with these virtual world bits, which are important. Oh, and the animation of Aelita walking through the tower or whatever, that's all reused. I even noticed a moment where they reused, like, there's these, like, hopping platforms, and there's, like, ones that are, like, spinning and shit. They reused, like, Yumi jumping and, like, catching this ledge. Like, So that was the thing. That they reuse a lot of stuff, you know, but like most of the stuff in the real world, you know, aside from when the students are walking out of class, they reuse that too. It's a lot of reused animation. That also makes it feel a little bit tedious, but I still really enjoy it, you know? And maybe that's just nostalgia, but I don't think so. I think a lot of the show genuinely works pretty well, you know? But it's just marred down by a lot of filler with the Lyoko section and some of the reused animation. Just makes it kind of feel tedious, like I said. So, but I think overall season 1 was pretty strong. There was a lot of solid episodes, and some good solid development for our characters, and then also, you know, like just some solid premises, really memorable moments. You know, so yeah, and it's just a fun show, and I appreciate that, and especially something to just put on the side while, you know, and when I don't feel like really thinking about anything while I'm like playing RuneScape or something, you know, like it's great for that kind of vibe, you know, just very cozy, nostalgic sort of vibes, you know. But I won't say, of course, that it's a perfect show and it holds up completely perfectly or whatever, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to argue about that, you know, for sure, but I do still really like it so far. We'll see how the other seasons kind of match up, but, you know, like, this one is a solid, like, 1 thumbs up kind of deal, you know, like, so far I'm still enjoying the show, so we'll see how far devolved into, like fillery bullshit it gets into, because I just remember some of the later stuff being kind of tedious, but we'll see how it goes, right? We'll see with season 2, so until then, until next time, stick around, subscribe to join the Bad Girl Coven, and never forget that magic comes from the heart, and, you know, I'll see you guys in the next one, because here we are, we're going far to save all that we love. If we give what we've got, we can make it through. Alright, bye, I'll see you guys in the next one.